Good morning, people of the internet. You're listening to Debi Radio 79.5 FM, a podcast where we discuss the movie Grosse Pointe Blank, 1 minute at a time. I'm your co-host, Dev Sodiger.
And I'm the other co-host, Hugh David, and on today's show, we're looking at minute 29, wherein the whole tone of the film shifts on a dime. Joining us today, we have Aaron Newirth of Out Now with Aaron and Abe, as well as writer at We Live Entertainment. My apologies. Aaron, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Glad to be back.
Fantastic. Yes, indeed. It's been a good week so far with you. Very much so. So we left things off at that moment where the film reveals its RomCom ambitions, having already worked through 2 or 3 other genres along the way. Yep. It's a wonderful, wonderful blend, what in India we would call a masala film. Right? It's Bollywood. It's got that thing. It's got that thing where it mixes up genre, tone, ideas. Yes, it doesn't have a musical the way Bollywood does, but the soundtrack matters.
Yeah,
and it does it in less than 6
hours. Show this movie
to
somebody in Mumbai and say, "Yeah, this is one of those Bollywood movies."
No. But I'm just saying that there's a reason why you have 2 Asians presenting this podcast. It chimes. Yeah. I mean, I can imagine a producer 10 years earlier trying to, make the film be one thing or the other. I can imagine them trying to smack it down and go, no, you this is off. Totally take that bit out and keep this bit, or take that bit out. You can't be all of these things, Yeah,
it's not just a comedy action movie with a romantic interest, right?
No.
It's much better balanced than that and more finely balanced than that.
Yes, every part of the film is that genre as it's happening.
Which is the recipe for a cult film, because it's so hard to sell that, because you have to tell an audience through a trailer in 2 minutes what the movie is, and it's like, so what is this? It's about assassins. It's about a high school reunion. I saw Romeo and Michelle's. I saw that trailer. What's this?
Yeah.
It's a rom-com. Is it an action? What do you do with this? So it's not a surprise that audience would find this later, because they discovered it's like, oh, this is great. Why didn't I watch this in theaters? In theaters, it's like, it did okay at best, but it wasn't a smash hit by any means.
I think that it is, as you say, it is the classic definition of a cult film. It is not this is not a film I can imagine. Too many films that want to be cult these days set out to be cult from the start.
Yeah,
this film didn't. This is a proper film made for the theaters. Expecting to recoup something on home video, but that's not what it's aiming at. And it is, without a doubt, classic cult in that sense, because you have to get on its wavelength to enjoy it. And it's not going to spoon feed you, and it's not going to hold out its hand to you. It's just going to be itself. And I think that's the joy of it. But here now, minute 29, and we have Martin Q. Blank, John Cusack's character, and we have the Debi who gives our podcast its name, played by Minnie Driver, in her radio station. And they stand there in the studio with the windows behind them, framing them. And
perfect. Backlit, silhouetted, rom-com, guy and girl.
Small town.
Picturesque, yeah.
The sort of thing you're... would you say that this is an antecedent for the delights of your wife's favourite subgenre, Dev?
So for Aaron's benefit,
let me hear more about this.
My wife has a fascination and an obsession with the Hallmark Christmas movies, which I am not going to lie, I also kind of share. I do quite like them.
My little girlfriend's a big fan of the Hallmark Christmas movies. I've seen a number of them.
Same.
I've seen one with Joan Cusack. Actually.
Yeah, the Christmas train. Yeah,
the Christmas train. And because this is the tangent we definitely need to go on. I had this we were watching the Christmas train when it was first airing, and I had this running thought that no one's interacting with Joan Cusack. I'm wagering she's a ghost. She wasn't a ghost, but still, I wanted to hold on to this idea that the whole time that she was a ghost. I kept saying it throughout the movie. Once again, nobody else is talking to her except this one person. I think she's a ghost.
Joan Cusack is the Sixth Sense. Yeah. I love how weirdly awkward she plays it in that film as well. It's just It's so perfectly done.
Like a ghost would. I don't know.
You know what? Sixth Sense would have been better with John Cusack instead of Bruce Willis. I've just realized.
It would have been better with most any actor. Bruce Willis.
Oh, Willis isn't
you're
that
coming
bad.
down hard, and I think he's fantastic. Like those are those are
He's
his good performances with Shyamalan.
Yeah,
well,
no, they are good.
But with Shyamalan, I think he's really good.
He
plays,
is, but I'm just
because he has to play sad puppy dog in Sixth Sense, really like to a point.
Yeah,
and I think it works really well. I
don't
know if I can see Cusack being that sad that long without.
Well, it's just that he always is, though, isn't he? Cusack's a pretty hangdog.
He plays hangdog, but there's a detachedness to. I don't know what to talk about.
I see. No,
I need to watch
see
Sixth Sense again to really analyze this and think about Cusack.
No. I see what you're getting at. That is, okay.
I can see him playing the psychiatrist side of it for sure. Playing the
exactly.
I don't talk to my wife for some reason side of it. I think Willis is really good with that. So there's something there that he doesn't get to tap into very much. And this has been the Sixth Sense Minute.
Well, it was the Joan Cusack minute there for a minute.
Which has
been before. Yeah. It's been before. We've done that before. One episode it was a pure Joan Cusack, praise-a-thon. We had a good time with that.
Bringing it back to this minute, I think there is some really, really fun, snappy dialogue in this minute.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And I think it really quickly sells why these two work so well as a couple. This back and forth, what have you been doing with yourself? Living out in California. I still think it odd that he would answer with California, because I can't imagine anyone not saying living in LA. But a lot of travel, like super vague answers, but very, very quick with the answers. And she's pushing for more and more information out of him. And then another instance of a minute cutting badly. We just don't quite hear his response to, so what do you do for a living? But
and that's jumping ahead a bit, but like it is the answer that he gives honestly.
It is
one of the he does it only a couple times with him and Piven and her father, where he's like, professional killing, like no mess around it.
And with every one of those, nobody ever quite believes him except for the father, right?
He plays else. That's a minute for you guys later on, but that's a pitch perfect response where he takes like one pause and is like, growth industry. Like, that's
it's a growth industry.
Way to get him while the ground's hot on that one. To back up in this one though, like before even like the dialogue starts, this whole like we're seeing each other for the first time. What does that mean? And they look like two like birds doing like a dance of like, what is the next move? And then they immediately make out in a way that's so like, it's like I don't know what the direction would be for that scene. It's like, you both don't necessarily need to do this, but you feel like this is what's required in this moment to like settle something. And then they back off. And when he backs off, it's great because he hands back in the pocket. He like backs way back to like the back of the door again all of a sudden. Like he just has such nervous energy of like, I don't know what my move. Like I'm a professional assassin who kills people with carefully planned out strategy. I don't know what to do with this DJ booth right now. Like,
this is
weird for me.
And then she's got that weird look on her face, like she's like, "Oh, okay, now we're moving."
And you should say something now, huh?
Yeah,
right?
Like, wait, okay, that's not it. That's not what we're doing. It's so, it's beautiful. It's just, like you say, I do wonder what Armitage said at the time, and I do wonder, considering how much of the dialogue on the page got cut for this scene, I do wonder how this all played out. The other thing I was noticing was, and I see this more and more as I get older, and it's not always accurate. Actors are actors. It's their job to act. It's their job to pretend. But the amount of times when you can see when actors are genuinely into each other as people, there is something in the air between them, and it isn't just the performance, and it isn't just the director saying, on your marks, there, as they lead into that kiss. And the way it works and the way the whole film plays out. And I just looked it up, and yes, guess what? They did date because of this film for a year. And I'm like, yep, that makes complete sense to me. There is just something about their chemistry, about the way they inhabit not just the characters, but there is a clear sense of in their physical nature around them. Yes, they're doing what the characters need. Yes, they're doing what the film needs, but also they themselves are into each other, and I think that's a huge part of what sells the film.
Yeah, far be it for me to like speculate too much, but it's not surprising because like you're in such an intimate place where you're like working with someone days on end, and you need to like get close to them, and that just seems like a part of
Yes.
the because like she also dates Matt Damon after Good Will Hunting for a good long while too,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
think that comes from you're spending hours on end going over lines or getting the
Yeah.
chemistry right or like figuring out like how this works between us, and that as being actors you need to like really like tap into certain kinds of places and emotions. I think it's hard
Yeah.
to get out of a certain place emotionally with that connection that you suddenly form with somebody you're working with
Yeah.
so intimately.
It's also interesting that apparently he has a history of dating his co-stars. It's like it's a serial thing. So Jamie Gertz, 16 Candles. Melissa Gilbert cheated with him actually because her fiance cheated with someone else. When he was on Say Anything, Lily Taylor. When he was on Bullets Over Broadway, Susanna Melvoin. So kind of interesting. Not what I was expecting. I always figured he was like
He's like a famous bachelor. Like he's not
yeah,
he's not married. Like
yeah.
he's a, especially during that time, he's a handsome guy.
Yeah,
He's smart.
exactly. Yeah.
It's not surprising
No,
necessarily.
not well. I don't know why. It's not so much that I'm surprised. It's more kind of like I just never thought about it. I just thought, yeah, he's a handsome dude. People like him. I never thought about the fact that one of the reasons he's as good as he is with these performances is there's a real the energy is real, the attraction is real, and I think
Yeah, like he's not a method actor, but he's a guy that
no.
like the parts he takes,
Tilly
especially
agrees with you, Aaron.
yeah.
Tilly absolutely agrees with you on this. Cusack.
he like stuff here or there comes up where he got drawn into or whatnot, but for the most part, like the roles he takes are very particular. Like you mentioned like Con Air. It's like there's not many blockbusters on his resume because he doesn't really operate that way, right? He operates and take away this is minus like the direct to video stuff, which is paying the bills. That's later on, but like during this period of time, looking at Say Anything, High Fidelity, this. 8 Men Out, The Grifters, like it's choices
great
being
films,
made.
those.
Great, it's stuff being so.
That's classy stuff as well, though. All the stuff you've mentioned is stuff by either directed or written or produced by auteurs and art house people and people who are famous already before they get to it. And as you say, he made clear choices to work on in a broader palette than your typical Hollywood career. And it is interesting that, I mean, yes, he's, as you say, he doesn't do blockbusters, but he has made sure he's got one Bruckheimer under his belt. He has made sure that he's got one Stephen King under his belt. It's like every now and then he does them, and he does the interesting ones. He doesn't do the really super commercial tacky ones, like we were saying the other episode where we were talking about Con Air. It's not. It wasn't intended to be. I mean, obviously it's a Bruckheimer summer hit. It was intended. That Nick Cage was riding high off the back of The Rock, and as well as his Oscar off Leaving Vegas, but people were still getting their heads around the idea of Cage as an action star. And there was something, I can remember the trailer for Con Air, and I can remember my friends going, "That looks incredible," and I was sitting there going, "Yeah, but will it be?" And it wasn't until you actually were in the theater watching it, and you're like, "Oh, this is mad! This is crazy!" And Cusack's right there in it, holding his own. But I think he's always ended up on the slightly odder blockbusters. I don't consider 1408 to be your typical Stephen King.
Yeah, he does. What he would consider thinking man's stuff that seems like intriguing to him outside of like the the standard things, which Con Air, for that kind of a role he's playing, where he's like the smart guy in the room, like that's like you look at this a lot, he works with a lot of his same guys, like writers and stuff. So you have this and High Fidelity and Pushing Tin and even like Serendipity. Like regardless of like how much you like any of those films, it's a lot of like his people like coming together to like do another thing. And if it's not that, it's then I'll work with Terrence Malick, I'll work with my friend Tim Robbins, I'll work with Clint Eastwood. Like like after. Because like the early '80s, it's like the teen stuff, right? He's a teen actor. He's doing these comedies, and I think when he does Say Anything with Cameron Crowe, like he did 8 Men Out, and then he does Say Anything. I think when he does that, that's where he sees like a teen comedy. Where it's like this could be more than just me like acting like a, whatever, like in and those are fun. Like I like the shirt thing. I like One Crazy. Like they're they're fine, but I feel like he probably saw like a movie like Say Anything, which had it's a better screenplay by all means, and it's like I could be doing more of this, and I think that's what he's a
Yes.
star at that. He's a star. He's a big enough star at that point where he can make certain decisions, and I think he just actively
Yeah.
chooses like things like that from then on. Things shift because that's just how fame works for it now. Where it's like, no, I got to start making some, lesser things than I
Mm.
maybe would have normally associated myself with. But for a good run there from like the late '80s to like the mid 2000s, he was, you know,
Mm.
choosing a lot of what he would consider interesting projects.
God, I'd forgotten he's in the Ice Harvest and Runaway
I like the
Jury.
Ice Harvest a lot. That's
Yeah, it's a good
The
film, man.
one I was just reminded of was Max, which I thought was an excellent film,
Do you know I've
and
not seen that? I've just seen it,
it's
spotted it on the
yeah,
resume.
it's worth watching. It's quite a difficult watch, but it is very much in that more auteur kind of
Noah Taylor.
that's when he
over.
considers one of his like shining moments of his career. Like I think when like 1408 came out, he was saying like there's like 8 movies I really love that I did. Max was one of them for sure.
Oh my god, that is exactly my kind of film and plot, and that cast is incredible. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
going to be hunting this one
it's
down. This is going to take a while because the other one I found recently digging around in DVD sales was something I saw years ago on VHS, which was Pushing Tin,
Mm.
where
yeah,
he and what's his
Billy Bob,
name, Billy Bob, are
Billy
playing
Bob,
the competing, Billy Bob,
Air,
playing the competing air traffic controllers. And it's not a great film, but it's an interesting enough film that I don't mind paying £1.50 for a DVD of.
yeah.
Just to have because that thing hasn't made it through to any kind of modern service. And I forgot he was in Being John Malkovich, which I saw in the cinema. It was great.
Yeah,
Jeez,
that's right.
man, that '90s period, that late
yeah,
'90s
he's
into
just got a
2000s
lot of
is
like
still so strong.
Yeah,
God, that's crazy that it just suddenly, yeah, just suddenly kind of not stops, but like you said, he makes some choices, doesn't he? Well, so and then of course Minnie Driver, also made those choices and famously stopped basically for quite a while and didn't come back until she did that The Riches with Eddie Izzard, and and now is again taking time out, and then it's all been with her. It's all been about family, raising her kids,
well, she had
and now
TV
she's
also. I mean, she does.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Cusack's never been the only one to do TV apart from the Utopia remake for Amazon. Um, Whereas she's quite happy to do TV, she started out in it. She was happy to go back to it, and she made. And I keep saying this. I need to read her bio because she did the autobiography last year. So I really want to have a read of that because it's meant to be very. It's not so much the tell-all thing. It's more the kind of the entertainment value of how she goes from one thing to another and ends up in this life. But yeah, I always thought that she was an unusual uh, actress to become a star or to become, you know, renowned in all of these big vehicles because she's so not the traditional Hollywood actress visually in that it's thinking of that era. But then she's also not the only one to break that mold at that time. Thinking of like something like Go with both Sarah Polley and Katie Holmes and a whole bunch of other people in it that makes that much more interesting faces in the indie scene, kind of doing indie things.
That's fair. I mean, like she never really has much of a lead period. Like it's
Mm.
pretty much like Grosse Pointe Blank, Good Will Hunting, till like up to where does it stop? I mean, it's not long. Like 2000 with Return to Me, which is like totally like David.
Mm.
After that, it's just like supporting roles, or she becomes the
Yeah,
mother pretty quickly in a lot of things, or
yeah,
like the side character,
yeah.
which is nothing. I mean, she's a very good actress. It's not a not a problem. But
I just think it was one of those things where when I was younger, I hadn't. It was a weird thing to get my head around the idea that people would leave these businesses and go do
hmm,
their own thing. And it wasn't until I got into DVD and film myself that I was like, oh, now I see why people leave. There's only so long you can do these things before what's left of your soul is just scraping at the insides to try and get out. And you're like, I need to do something else and get back to a slightly more human approach. And so these days I look at it now like, oh, good on you. You got out. Well done. It's cool. So yeah. very, very good actress though. So good.
The other thing is she got that Oscar nomination so early on too, and it's like it's a matter of like, so what do we put you in now? Like, what is that? And it doesn't really, because she had, like you mentioned, she has a unique kind of presence where it's like, you seem like too mature to be like the young girlfriend of kids and people, and like, but
she's
you're
got that grown up
too
thing
old
going on,
in Hollywood terms for like other
Yes.
things, so it's like it didn't like match out for her as far as becoming like a consistent leading star in things.
Yeah. And I think she's too early to be accepted as the lead female role in most traditional Hollywood movies, because she is that bit too different. She's not the Hollywood ideal for a leading actress.
And it's the competing game. There's 20 other actresses that are all also
You're
competing for the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
That are maybe more the flavor of the month or what have you.
Yeah. This is exactly what I'm hoping to find out in her book. I'm actually really interested to see who she was up against in auditions for various roles that she didn't get. I'm actually quite interested to see what constituted her competition. I think that could be very eye-opening. She's definitely not the only Brit at that time starting to make their way across the pond. And
I mean, this is the same period as Catherine Zeta-Jones is over.
Yep. And this is
Rachel's kind of just coming along as well.
Yeah, so I do wonder if it was just that sudden.
Australia always seem to importing everybody in.
Yeah. There always seems to be a wave, doesn't there? It's like there was that point in American TV where all of a sudden there's like blonde Australians all suddenly turning up and playing cops, and you're like, or something, or investigators of one sort or another. And I was like, what is going on? But that's just the way it is, I guess.
As far as this scene goes,
yes.
Getting back to that thing we're talking about.
Sorry, yeah. Bad habit.
There's the whole makeout thing. Then there's the Cusack ramping up the nervous energy to my favorite question that he asks: how long has it been? If I had to guess, how long has it been? 10 years? And she just goes back and it was like, oh, since you stood me up at prom and left me forever without any a word. 10 years. Yeah, I think that's just about. It's not the 11th year reunion, I don't believe. Yeah, it's the 10 years.
Yeah, it is just, and again, as I was saying in the previous episode, they've cut so much dialogue that was on the page, and there wasn't that much dialogue, and instead, it's that whole exchange you've just narrated that still contains the tone, but works so much better, so much better.
And all of that nervous teenage energy, it really feels like the last time they saw each other was like right at the end of high school. Like they're acting exactly the same way all over again.
So what have you been up to? California business. That's that's 10 years, huh? Like he gives more to Piven than he does to her with that answer.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Yeah. Oh, and I think that's because he cares about her response more. He's more worried about letting her down than Paul. He they're buds. Like you kind of can say anything, and Paul will just roll with it.
Yeah. But also, it's interesting because they cast Piven in it. What I love about Paul, and obviously we'll have to talk about it more when we get there, but there is a mounting sense of his frustration takes a while to come out. It builds because he gets these answers. And he knows he's being fobbed off. Whereas with Minnie Driver's character, Debbie's just like, bam. This is how long it's been, and this is what's going on. You can just see the kind of rewind slightly in her head, like, "Oh, okay, yeah, no, I'm supposed to be mad at him."
Yeah.
Oh dear, but yeah, it is a lovely minute in that sense.
We're way past, but since we're on Paul for a bit here, one of my favorite lines in this movie, like absolute like top 3 favorites, is, I want to fuck it up. The when they're driving along, Paul and Martin, and he says, "Here's Debbie's place. Kind of crept up on you, huh?" "No, you drove us here."
Yeah, I've got a young couple with decision-making disorder. I need to hold their hands and reinforce their clarity. The other line I like of his.
Or the other thing we haven't mentioned, I mean, I know we were talking about the conversation between them and the way it works, but I absolutely love her reaction to him saying, just bang on the end of the minute when he says when he says his job, and he actually just goes with the truth. And and her response, I know, is at the start of the next minute, but it's just wonderful because it says everything about her and her attitude and her the way she kind of copes with things. But yeah, I'll save that for the next episode. So.
All right.
Right, so let's wrap this baby up. This was minute 29 of the Grosse Pointe Blank podcast, Debi Radio 79.5 FM, featuring your hosts, co-writers, and co-producers, Des Oliver and myself, Hugh David.
Today's guest was Aaron Newworth of Out Now with Aaron and Abe. And where can we find more about you, Aaron?
Everything I do ends up on my personal blog, thecodeofzeke.com. I do host the podcast Out Now with Aaron and Abe, weekly movie releases that we discuss, and a lot more fun nonsense with my friend Abe and various hosts, various guests. I write for League of Entertainment for movie reviews and Wise of Blue for Blu-ray and Criterion reviews, and I'm on Twitter at Aaron's PS4.
Fantastic.
And you can find us on all good podcast players, as well as on YouTube, X, aka Twitter, and Spotify at Debi Radio, as well as on our website, debiradio.com. And for all of those, it is Debi, spelled D-E-B-I.
And if you want to talk with us, please join the Facebook's listeners group, Debi Radio 79.5 FM Fan Club. And we will hopefully be able to get back to your questions and comments there. For now, thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.
Sure was clear that all of this was new. Concentrating hard like a little girl, smoking for the first time.